socks out here, boy. Protect your feet. Yeah.
What up, bike nerds? Welcome to my first ever restoration video. Today we're working on a Shimano Deore MT60 rear derailleur. We're going to do the full restoration on it, buff out the scratches, repaint the body, the full shoot and match. It's in okay condition, but let's get this thing going. So I usually just start with the easy stuff. So first, barrel adjuster. Next, cable stop. You kind of have to finesse that thing out the back. Just like me at a bar. But next is the high and low limit screws. If you're having trouble, if this stuff isn't coming out easily, what I like to do is just soak everything with a PB blaster or a liquid wrench for a while. It usually helps mitigate damage too while you're unscrewing some of this stuff, because sometimes, dirt in the threads just isn't a good combination. But this one's coming apart pretty easily. The jockey wheels are pretty worn, but I'm still going to use them. Make sure your wrenches are set too. That little wiggle there, that was just to make sure it was set, because you don't want to be stripping stuff. I've been there, I've done that. It's not fun. It takes time. It takes a 1 hour project into a couple days project. Not fun. But for this, I like to set the spring up a little bit because you don't want to have it come whipping around. So after it's out, slowly turn it back. You might have to lift up on the body, but if you don't, it'll come whipping around. It could hit a knuckle and it just doesn't feel good. So there'll be a screw on the back side now. This holds that lower spring body all together. So after you get this out, everything should just slide out. And this will be a good chance to see what the inside of this derailleur is looking like. Not in bad condition, but not great. Definitely needs some fresh grease and a clean. These C-clips come out really easily with just a flathead screwdriver. Got to demagnetize that thing. So this spring is has way more oomph to it than the other one, so just be careful taking this one out. I really like to put a lot of pressure on it because I've been whacked with those things before. Not fun. And that thing's really stuck in there. So let's push the hanger bolt out. There should also be a little gasket on there. So the body at this point is fully disassembled. Don't need to take that down any further. Now we just need to figure out this spring here. Don't pull on the springs, especially from the top, because you could stretch it, and that's just a pain. I'm telling you this all from experience. I've done all that before. It's easily avoidable, but to me, starting out, I just didn't know. Usually these gaskets here, this little plastic gasket, usually those come off really easily, but this one had to be finessed off. So just slowly go around, wiggle it off. With Disassembly, you don't need to crank on stuff too hard. It's an easy time to damage stuff, so just take your time. When in doubt, lube it up. But this thing is fully taken down now. Now time to clean it all in the ultrasonic. So I like to go 1/3 simple green cleaning solution, 2/3 water, just in a mason jar. I've got the ultrasonic cleaner heating up right now to about 80 degrees. I don't like to go much hotter than that because what it will do is damage any paint or decals. It could lift them right off. Again, been there, done that, not fun. So about 80 degrees for 10 to 15 minutes. Any longer than that could also fog anodized parts and put a nice fog in there that just isn't appealing. So there we are at about 69 degrees for about 12 minutes. And you'll see how dirty the cleaning solution got just after that 12 minutes. And you can always run multiple cycles. There's no rule saying you can't, but I'm just saying from experience that hotter temps for longer time can definitely do some damage. So I'll go rinse all of this off with a hose and empty it all off and dry it up on a microfiber cloth. This is another great time to check for cracks or for any other damaged parts now that there's not a layer of dirt on it. But what I'll do is I'll go through each part and just wipe it down clean with a microfiber and inspect it all a little bit more, and then use compressed air just to blow out any of those nooks and crannies. You don't want any water sitting anywhere, especially if we're going to start reassembly right away. But the ultrasonic did miss some stuff, so I'm going to go through, scratch out the rest of the dirt, maybe use some brake cleaner. But here are the parts all cleaned. Looking pretty good so far, but now we're going to get those scratches out, because that is making me anxious. So to start with the scratch removal, I just have a Dremel with a sanding bit. You can also use a file. It's aluminum, so it cuts really fast. So keep that in mind, this won't take too long. With a file, you can be a little more careful with the shape of it all, so you don't have to change the shape as much, but the Dremel just does it so much faster. So there it is, all the scratches are buffed out. All the metal's been flattened. Which is to be expected from a mountain bike derailleur. Now we're going to sand out the scratches that the Dremel left, starting with 600 grit, and then moving up to 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, and then finishing it off with 3,000. Definitely use wet sand. It's less abrasive on the sandpaper. Your sandpaper will last much longer. But there it is, all sanded and flattened. Now we're going to paint the middle body part, try to match that metallic silver as best we can. I'm just wiping it down with some lacquer thinner to remove any grease or just whatever else is on there. So I'm going to tape off the Deore logo, use the back of a paintbrush just to make sure those edges are nice and crisp, and then cut out as close as I can with an X-Acto. Don't press too hard because you will cut into the paint and then it will just leave a weird line after you pull the masking tape off. So there it is, masked up. And then I'm choosing Tester's model paint. I found a silver that matched pretty much perfectly. And then just very thin coats. Do like 100 coats, but just all very thin. You don't want to glob it on and really use thick layers. You don't need to do that. Then onto the buffing wheel. Another area where you just take your time. There's no rush. Make sure you got a good grip on it. And now that it looks pretty, let's put it all back together. I just start with greasing both the springs. I'm using fill grease. I use this grease for pretty much everything. Besides threads, I'll just use a cheaper grease for that. But this stuff works very well and it smells fantastic, so highly recommend. Now that the springs are lubed up, we're going to do the upper spring first. You notice there's a flat end and a little curlicue pigtail end. The pigtail end should be facing outwards. I sometimes got to wiggle it around just to make sure that other end finds the hole. Could make a funny, inappropriate joke there, but I'm not gonna. You were all thinking it too. So now we're going to put that gasket back on. And we're going to load this spring. I like to do this and load it first before I put the bolt in. It just makes it a little easier to press down. So spin it counterclockwise. You don't want to go the other way or else you'll stretch the spring. So once that little lip comes past the stop is when you push down, and then just keep the pressure on. Pressure, pressure, pressure. You don't want it coming undone or else shit's going to be flying everywhere. So gasket, bolt, it's got to come up all the way through so that the C-clip can fit on there. Thought I could do it by hand, but nope. Just use whatever you got laying around to push that thing in. Boom. So the first upper spring is set now. Now for the lower. There's 2 holes on this piece that I'm picking up now. You can use either hole. Pigtail end is also out. One of them will give you less tension, the other one will give you more. I'm going for the max tension here, obviously. But once you get that all pressed in, line up that little piece and then screw it in. Forgot my screwdriver, so I had to go run real quick and get it. So we're just screwing that in. The spring isn't set yet, but it's in. And now we're gonna go counterclockwise with the body facing up. Might have to lift up a little bit. And then once it gets past the stop, we'll take our stop bolt and screw it in, all while holding the body up. You can feel the tension in the spring. It's kind of satisfying in a weird way. And then just let it go slowly. And now both springs are set. Now it's just reassembly with everything else, which is really easy. For the jockey wheels, I like to use a little bit of this tenacious oil. Tenacious, not sure how to pronounce it. But I like to use this a little bit more than grease just because it just seems to work a little bit better. I've used both. And the nozzle seems to fit super well. It's also really slippery. So I dropped these things like 8 or 9 times. Starting with the upper, so there are 2 different wheels. The one with the more pronounced edge, I guess, is the upper. And the smoother, more round wheel is the lower one. So now we got the upper in. I like to kind of just screw it in a little bit, not super tight so you can still move it around. But now we're putting the lower in, the limit screws and everything else, and derailleur is restored. This is going on an 84 Stumpjumper Sport XT that will be for sale soon. But I'm really happy how it turned out. I did miss a couple spots with the sanding, probably could have taken my time, but I'm happy with how it turned out, especially considering how it looked before. It's just those little details. So have fun and go tinker. Go ride your bike. Have fun. Peace.